Hello everyone, Phil here, and welcome to DSPReacts and my latest movie review of Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, Avatar: The Way of Water came out in late 2022. It was the long-awaited sequel to Avatar from over a decade ago, a movie that when it came out was a cultural phenomenon, a movie that broke box office records. You know, James Cameron's real return to movie prominence after having so many hits back in the day and really hadn't had something too big in a while. And it, blew people away. I remember so many people were seeing this in movies and in the movie theaters and kept going to see it again and again. It sold like hotcakes on Blu-ray. The weird thing about it was after that movie came out and was such a hit, we didn't hear anything about Avatar for over 10 years. And then all of a sudden it was announced, oh, finally the next one's ready to come out. I guess apparently it was in production during COVID and it kind of got held up, and then it finally came out last year, late 2022. I finally got the opportunity to see the movie on HBO Max. It just released like a week ago. And I wanted to give my opinion on it because people wanted to know my opinions on it ever since it came out late last year, and I didn't have a chance to see it in theaters. Now, admittedly, I will tell you something, all right? My background with the movie is thus. I saw the first one, and I wasn't massively impressed. I thought that the first Avatar movie had a good cast, good acting, amazing visuals when it came to the CGI and the visual effects for the time. But the plot was essentially the same plot as like Pocahontas or Dances with Wolves or that kind of a plot line of, natural inhabitants of a region being invaded by, outliers. They're coming in because they want to take their land, they want to take their resources. And it's the struggle of those indigenous peoples fighting back for what they believe in and to defend their homeland. And of course, you have people of the invading force and then become sympathizers with them. It's a plot line you've heard before. And it didn't really grip me. It's funny because I saw Avatar once and I thought it was all right, and I thought one more time, and after that I was like, dude, I never want to see this movie ever again. It really feels to me like it's just something I've seen before. I mean, the visual effects are beautiful, but I don't understand how Avatar broke box office records the way it did. It wasn't necessarily a great movie. It was just a visual experience. And so when this one was coming out, I was like, if this sequel comes out and has a plot that's better than the first one, right off the bat, if it's something more original than, say, a rehashed plot you've already heard before, it might be a much better movie. Well, let me tell you, Avatar: The Way of Water is a long one. Almost 3.5 hours long, and it basically has 3 distinct acts, all right? There's the intro act that gets you caught up on all the events between the first movie and this one. There's the middle act, which is development of the main cast, moving to a new land. And then there's the final act of conflict where there's a big fight and the big resolution of the movie. Each act almost feels like completely different pacing. So what I'd like to do is go act by act and explain what I thought about each one, because they almost feel like 3 separate movies in a lot of ways, okay? So to recap, what happened in the original movie was that basically Jake Sully was one of the humans who had gone to this Na'vi world and had gone inside an avatar to look like the Na'vi and become one of them and kind of infiltrate their people because the humans wanted to basically take over the world and get their resources. But some people didn't want to do that, and they befriended the Na'vi, and Jake Sully was one of them, okay? And the intro of this movie, the first hour, is essentially getting you caught up with what happened in the many years since the first movie. It's supposed to be around, I think it's like a 15 to 20 year time frame, if I'm not mistaken. Jake Sully, if you remember at the end of the first movie, teamed up with the Na'vi and decided to permanently become one of these people. His avatar becomes an actual Na'vi to join them. In addition, the Sigourney Weaver character, who was the human doctor kind of in charge of the research of the Na'vi, who was dying at the end of the first movie, and she was the first person to become one of these Na'vi avatars, has become part of the planet. She was absorbed into the planet tree in the first movie, and so she's almost like this behind the scenes, almost like a god or goddess figure. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes because she comes into play in the movie. So, Jake Sully, after having fought off these humans, remember at the end of the first movie, there was a big showdown between him and the Colonel, who was the military guy in charge of basically the invasion of the Na'vi. He fought off the Colonel. The Colonel died in the end of the first movie. And Jake Sully now has become permanently one of the Na'vi. So he is now married to his romantic interest from the first movie. And they have kids. They have 4 kids. 2 boys, 2 girls. The boys are older and kind of like, young adults, while the girls are a little bit younger. I think one of the girls older, one of the girls is much younger. And they're living as basically kind of the rulers of the forest people, okay? And that's really where the movie picks up. You get to see how they're living, see their family life, see how everything is going down since the humans left. and it's interesting for a little bit, but you know, it's not the most riveting thing. It's cool to see that Jake Sully kind of had an epilogue after the first movie, and that he got to start a family with the Na'vi and all of that. And also, in addition, this is a key plot point, the son of the Colonel, who was just a baby at the time, was left behind on the planet. All the humans were like evacuating, but they realized there was no way a baby could basically leave the planet in the hypersleep. So they left the baby behind, and this baby then essentially became Tarzan. And what I mean by that is it grew up to be like, I think the kid's like 18 or something, and he even looks like Tarzan, but he's become one of the Na'vi. He knows how to speak their language. He becomes friends with Sully's family, and he's like a family friend by the name of Spider. That's what he goes by, Spider. So this is very important to the plot, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So what ends up happening in the first act is you get introduced to Sully's family, but then the humans return. And this is the first what the heck moment. The humans return, and the plot now, if you believe this, is that they have cloned the Colonel, okay? And they turned him and his squad into Na'vi. What? If that were the case, right? Why didn't they do that in the first movie? If they could just turn the military personnel into Na'vi to infiltrate, why did they go through the whole deal of having Jake Sully and Sigourney Weaver's character do it? Why not just have the military infiltrate the Na'vi? It's kind of like you kind of almost, it's weird. This movie almost makes the first movie like not necessary. Like you could have started watching with this movie, and it almost makes the first movie feel like it didn't need to exist. So basically, the Colonel has a squad of Na'vi military, and they're infiltrating the planet, and their goal is to track down Jake Sully and essentially take him out to get revenge for the events of the first movie, okay? Now, in addition to that, there's a whole kind of interaction where basically, you know, the Colonel's squad has some interaction with Spider, and they run into Spider, and there's this weird interaction where, like, Spider's like, are you my dad or whatever? And I mean, technically he's not. He's a clone. He's not really his dad. But they kidnap Spider, and Spider now is with the human group that's invading the planet, all right? So after a bunch of altercations and back and forth, basically what ends up happening is Jake Sully realizes his family being with the Forest People is putting the Forest People at risk because the humans want to get revenge on him for what he did. And so he's like, we have to leave. We have to basically go undercover and try to protect our family and everyone here. So we're going to leave the Forest People, and we're going to try to move on and move to a different tribe and go undercover. The plot makes sense in that regard, but there's so many unanswered questions. Again, if they had the ability to reincarnate these people or clone these people and turn them into Na'vi, why didn't they do that in the first movie? Why on earth are they so dead set on getting Jake Sully revenge on him? Like, who cares? Just fucking leave him, right? Like, it's so weird. And the other thing, what in the holy hell were the Na'vi doing in the last 15, 20 years? I mean, you knew the humans were going to come back, right? They were definitely someday going to come back for revenge. You did nothing to prepare defenses. Like, literally, the humans steamroll in. It's like, oh, we weren't prepared. Well, what the hell were you doing? The first thing you would have done is set up a defense force. So if they come back, we have a way to fight them. How do we rally all the Na'vi against them? It's like, oh, we're so taken by surprise. Like, we never suspected they'd be back. It doesn't make any sense, okay? So, the end of the first act is the whole family arc is over, and then Act 2 begins, and in Act 2 what happens is Sully's family they go to the water Na'vi settlement. There's a whole new group of people separate from the forest Na'vi that are water people, aquatic people. And this, in my opinion, this whole middle hour or so of the movie is actually the best part of the movie. You get to see the culture clash between the forest people's ways and the aquatic ways. You get to see Jake Sully's family try to adapt to the water creatures. So you know how in the first movie you find out, oh, you have a life bond with a flying creature. Well, now you have a life bond with an aquatic creature that you ride almost like a seal through the water. Really cool, or like a dolphin. The water creatures are so neat. There's a whole side story with these whale pod that I guess become like soul brothers and sisters to the water Na'vi, and they have friendships and they talk to each other, and they're basically like two cultures that are living almost like symbiotically together and helping each other out. And there's, of course, you gotta have teen angst. So the teen kids of Jake Sully are having these issues where they're not accepted by the water people because the water people think that they're, you know, basically idiots, and they try to prank them and set them up for disaster, but then it ends up turning into other things that aren't so bad. You know, I could go into all the details. I don't want to spoil the entire movie, but I actually feel like the middle segment, that middle hour of them adapting to being water people and seeing all the cool water creatures and how they interact with the Na'vi and this whole new culture being explained to us is really interesting. it adds a whole new element to it that wasn't present in the first movie, which felt more like, again, like Pocahontas. This felt like something a little different, and that was good. Okay? But then we get to the final act of the movie, the final hour. All right? And I'm going to be honest with everyone. When we got to the third act and all this action started happening, I just kind of like started scratching my head. Like, I feel like people who go to the movies, I don't know. I feel like they don't want to think anymore. Because the whole final act is one of the most, in my opinion, worst designed action acts I've ever seen in any movie. It just makes everyone look like a fucking idiot. Like, everyone in the movie becomes a complete asshole moron. So, basically, the Sully family's undercover with the water people. They're hiding from the humans that are looking for them, the human Na'vi hybrids, the Colonel's squad, hunting them down. The Colonel's squad infiltrates a whaling operation on the planet and basically says, we're commandeering your ship and we're looking for, Sully's family, and you're going to do what we say. And so it shows this whole operation of them hunting the whales. It's gross. It's disgusting. They're mining the whales' brains to get this serum that makes apparently humans not age, which is, I guess, a subplot for the future. There's also a subplot where one of Jake Sully's daughters fuses with the world tree that's underwater with the water people. So, the forest people have their own tree. Well, there's an underwater coral growth. That's like the world tree for the water people. And she sees Sigourney Weaver in there. Her character is alive in the core of the planet. But then there's some weird thing where she has a seizure and no one really knows what's going on. Well, this comes into play in the final act of the movie, which we'll talk about in a second. So there's that subplot going on. There's a lot of subplots going on here, okay? But basically what ends up happening in the final act, well, guess what? Basically, Jake Sully's family gets found out. The humans know they're there. And so what they're trying to do is bait them out. They're like, we can't go in there and fight the water people head up. It ain't going to work. We got to bait out Jake Sully's family. So what they do is they go and attack the whales. When they attack the whales, the kids are so dumb, the kids go out there to help the whales without telling the fucking parents. Now, I just wanted you to think about this for a second, okay? We know that people are out to kill us. We know that this is going to be bait, but we're going to go out anyway. And we're not even going to tell the parents and the military force we're doing it. We're just going to go out on our own to try to save the whales. It's just like, what? And this is what I mean. Like, I understand suspending your disbelief, but the whole third act is just nonsensical stupidity. It's like the dumbest people, the dumbest creatures I've ever seen in my life. So, of course, they go out. What happens? The humans show up. They capture them. Now, Jake Sully and his family and the water people unite, and they have to go and try to fight the humans. And what begins is the most ridiculous, almost like Benny Hill sequence I've ever seen. Oh, no. Our daughters and sons are captured. We freed them. But then they had to go back to save Spider, because Spider is still under the control of the humans. So let's go rescue Spider. Oh, we're going to rescue Spider. Uh-oh, they captured our two sisters. Well, guess what? Well, now we're not going to save them. We're going to leave them. I'm not making this up. So they're all under imprisonment. They get freed. They decide to go back in for Spider. They save Spider. Half of them get imprisoned. And then they say, well, we can't save them. And they leave them behind. What? You were free. You went back for another prisoner, got one, but then two more were captured and you left them? Like, what? What? It doesn't make any sense. Again, it's terrible writing. It really is. It's just really bad writing. So now there's another. It's funny. I'm not even kidding you. The youngest daughter of Jake Sully literally says, I can't believe I got captured again. She literally says that in the movie. Well, I can't believe it either because it's so stupidly bad writing, right? So then, again, of course, there's another rallying. We got to save them. What ends up happening is, of course, in the end, the whales help them, and they attack the whaling ship. There's a big showdown between the clone of the Colonel and Jake Sully and all of this going on. At the end of the movie, there's a lot of sadness because one of them passed away. I'm not going to spoil, but one of them passed away. There's also the side plot line where one of the daughters had fused with the World Tree and had the seizure. Apparently, somehow she gets the ability now to control nature. It's never explained in this movie, but when the humans are coming to get them, there's a submarine or whatever, like underwater robots coming for them, and she controls the World Tree and other planets around to grab and crush them. Like, well, no one else had that ability, but she has it. It doesn't make any sense. So maybe because she saw Sigourney Weaver in the World Tree, now she has the ability to control nature or something on the planet. I don't know. It never really was explained, but it looks like it's a side plot for the future. And basically, by the time the movie ends, it sucks because the end is actually rushed. You would think, oh, after all this 3.5-hour movie, there's going to be an epic ending. No, literally the action ends, and they're like, well, it sucks. One of us died, but we fought off the humans. The humans for now are fought off, but you know they're going to keep coming for us, right? So basically the end of the movie is, okay, we're going to stay with the water people from now on. The end. No epilogue. Nothing. Just the end. It just ends abruptly. So the first hour of the movie, I'd say about half of it's good. Okay? The middle chunk of the movie is all good. The last hour of the movie is absolute god-awful schlock. It's bad writing. It makes no sense. Everyone's an idiot. Everyone's doing dumb things, getting killed, going after the whales, even though they know that it's bait, getting captured, saving some people, but then saying they can't leave anyone behind, go back for Spider. Oh, but then when we save Spider, we're going to leave 2 people behind. None of it makes any sense, okay? So basically, at the end of the movie, I'm left shaking my head, and I'm like, the movie feels... First of all, the movie just by default is better than the first one. Why? Because at least it's an original plot. It's not a redone, stolen plot from another movie franchise. At the same time, it's such a weirdly paced, disjointed movie that it doesn't feel like a great movie. Like, here's the thing. The reason Avatar 1 did so well is because of the visual effects. Well, looking at the visual effects of the sequel, they're still good, but they're not nearly as good as they were a decade and a half ago. You understand what I'm saying? Like, back then, that was like groundbreaking. Today, you see, it's like, well... It kind of looks like really good graphics in like a PS5 game or a high-end PC game. It looks good. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not blown away watching Avatar The Way of Water like I was watching the original Avatar movie. Technology has advanced in the last 10, 15 years, and seeing these characters, they're not amazing to me. It's funny because many months ago, I saw a visual effects video. And they're... Wow, look at the amazing visual effects in Avatar The Way of Water. There's a scene where he's strapping himself in with leather straps tied to one of the creatures he's about to ride in the water. You can see the water effects look realistic and the leather gets wet. And I'm like, and no one cares. No one's going to sit there and pause the fucking scene with the leather to see that. You understand what I'm saying? Like, 10, 15 years ago, the first movie blew us away. Here now, it doesn't blow me away anymore at all. It's just kind of, man, it's all right. We've seen now a million 3D movies. Michael Bay's done a million fucking 3D movies like this. Everyone's been pumping out 3D movies like this. It's just not that much of a jaw drop anymore. You know what I mean? Because we've seen it, and now we're seeing it in video games these days, great graphics and things like this. So it's not really that amazing anymore. What they really needed to do was go crazy with the plot, and the plot is better than the first, but still not great, and it's disjointed and badly paced. So overall, is it a bad movie? No, it's not. In fact, I would say it's a perfectly fine, you feel like one of those summertime action flicks or whatever, which is funny because it was released in fucking December. Really weird. It's a fine movie for that. If you want to just unplug your brain and not question the choices of the characters because they're all idiots, right? If you just want to have a good romp on Pandora and you enjoy aquatic life, you want to see some beautiful creatures rendered in 3D and stuff like that, it's perfectly fine for that. Does this movie deserve the insane box office records and the amount of money that it made? Fuck no! There's nothing in this movie to justify that. I have absolutely no idea why so many people ran out and saw it and then saw it again. It makes no sense to me at all. What it is sadly, people bought up into the hype, just like everything in life today. You have to have the new hottest piece of technology. You have to see the new movie. You have to see the new TV show. You have to know the new meme and meme about it on the internet. Because it gives you some feeling of self-worth to know you're a part of something that everyone else is a part of too, right? I didn't miss out on it. This movie is not a not miss at all. It's an easy miss. If you miss this movie, you literally didn't miss much at all right? It's not groundbreaking with the visual effects. The plot is not groundbreaking. There's literally nothing that's not miss about this. You can easily skip the movie and say, I missed nothing. But it's a decent watch. I enjoyed watching it on HBO Prime, even though HBO Max. I do believe it's way too long, 3.5 hours. Maybe it could have been a 2 to 2.5 hour movie. It would have been fine. You definitely could have cut out half of the action in the end of the movie. That was stupid. It's just not well paced in that regard. But, man, I don't know where all the hype came from and why it made the money it did. It's not that good. It's not terrible. I'm not going to sit out here and crap on it and say it's an awful movie. It's definitely not an awful movie. I've seen way, way, way worse film. But at the same time, it is not great. So, Avatar The Way of Water, honestly better than the first, but still kind of a weird film. Why are these movies making so much money? I have no effing idea, honestly, besides people just being stupid and buying into hype. it seems like they're leading into future plots. Like I said, this daughter now having the ability, she's talked to the Sigourney Weaver character inside the world tree, and now she can control things in the world. Like maybe she'll be able to control everything. Can she control all of the animal life? Can she control the plant life? Is she tuned into the world now, and she's gonna be like a god character by the end of these 5 fucking movies that are coming out? I don't know, but man, the movie ended terribly. It was just an abrupt end, totally rushed. Felt crappy, felt like it wasn't well thought out. Characters look like shit by the end of it. I almost feel like there's going to be another movie that feel like filler before they start getting to anything that's meaningful. It'll be like one of those two movie finales for a 5-movie franchise or something like that. So anyway, it's all right. Give it a look. If you like the first one, you'll probably like this one. Give it a look, but it's certainly not great. Avatar: The Way of Water. If I had to scale it 1 to 10, I'd probably give it like a 6 or maybe a 7. It's not that good. Then again, I think it's better than the first one. So probably the first one would definitely be like a 6. This is probably a 7. But definitely not a must-watch. Don't know what's going on with people. All right? Hope you enjoyed my review. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you soon because I actually have a slew of reviews on queue that'll probably be coming in the near future. So thanks for watching DSP Reacts. And see you next time.